Hello and welcome to ThePrint. Now, if you watch OTT, then there's no way that you have missed Tillotama Shome's performance in any web series she has done. And of course, I think for the whole of January, all of us were glued to our television sets watching Paatal Lok and watching her as Meghna Barua. Now, that's a personal favorite for me. I'm going to start this interview by looking at 5 of my favorite roles, which I get to do because I'm going to interview her. So I'll start with Meghna Barua, also because she spoke excellent Nagamese, which I don't think I was expecting to hear. So let's start with how you prepared for your Nagamese and then for the role, and how did the call happen?
The Nagamese was entirely because of this wonderful woman that Sudeep, introduced me to, called Anungla. She was also the cultural supervisor of the film. And Sudeep collaborated and worked very closely with her for the whole show, to basically make sure that there was nothing in the frame that was inaccurate or represented Nagaland in a way that was, wrong. And I was actually so thrilled with just that someone made the effort to not just appropriate something and then represent it in a way that is actually not true. So Anungla did classes with me, and as she was teaching me the Nagamese lines, she said, there's something in your so this slightly Assamese vibe I'm getting. Have you ever learned Assamese? And I was like, yes, actually, I did learn Assamese for a film, which I was supposed to do with Rima Ba, and it didn't happen. But I had a few months of Assamese training thanks to Rima Das's film, and my character Meghna Barua is Assamese working in Nagaland. So she's picked up Nagamese because she's married to a man from Nagaland and she works in Nagaland. So her Nagamese had to have, in a way, a slight Assamese lehza, and look at life. Nothing goes waste, when you learn something with a sense of excitement and I think a sincerity. That film didn't happen, but those classes were so useful for me in building Meghna. And I'm sure in that time, I would not have been able to learn Assamese then Nagamese, right? So I'm so glad that life had that planned for me in a way. And the way Anungla taught, she said, then let's work with that. Let's not erase that because it works really well. And so I learned all my Nagamese lines, and my sole focus was on getting the Nagamese right, because there's nothing more scary for me as an actor than speaking in a language and having locals feel they were misrepresented. It's like how annoyed I feel when I hear Bengali being spoken on screen in a manner which is so caricaturish. There are just a few words that I used and to give a flavor, but not really it's not a felt experience. It's like you gave me, it's like the difference between real vanilla, when you scrape a pod of vanilla and vanilla essence, There's something so saccharine and synthetic about, compared to an actual smell of vanilla, or just flowers too. When you actually smell a rose, it's a lovely fragrance, and I'm not so sure I feel that way when it's a rose perfume. It just feels too much, And so the language thing was very, very important for me, and I'm terrified when I have to speak in a language that is not mine. It is also exciting because it's terrifying, and it's one feeds the other. I think the nervousness makes me excited, and the excitement also makes me nervous. But knowing that Anungla had my back, and that if there was even the slightest of, she would correct me, that she was on the monitor next to Sudeep, I knew that I was safe. And my co-actors were so wonderful, Miranda. They were all so encouraging. But what happened during the prep, one of the days, so I'd learned the Nagamese, but one of the days I was thinking, but how does she speak English? And how does she speak Hindi? Now, when you have, your tongue falls in a certain way, in which Meghna's tongue does, the tongue would fall that way even for English and even for Hindi. So then just for an exercise for myself, I started getting the Ohmiya, in the way she speaks English. And on my first day of shoot, I told Sudeep and Avinash that, in the first take, I'm going to say my lines in a certain way, the English, just see if it feels too much. Because once I commit to that, it has to be consistent for the rest of the show. So this is my neutral way of speaking, But for someone who's, who is Assamese, there are certain words that are spoken differently. And just see if it works. It'll be just a gentle sense of, certain consonants. And after the first take, he said, yeah, keep it. And that was really fun because it was like, it was something that I had initially thought was just going to be the Nagamese lines, but then my entire character, she spoke in that way, So that made it very exciting.
And I think what it gave for us I'm an Assamese and I was watching a show which has come after, I don't know, since forever, which was looking at Northeast in a certain way. And I think when I switched on, for the very first episode, there was a lot of apprehension on my end as well, as somebody who's watched so many films, has grown up and has been really put off by some of the depictions. Like you said, for Bengali, there's stereotypes. For Northeast, it's clubbed, 8 states are clubbed together and there's a stereotype. So I think it also felt... there's a sense of visibility with not just your character, of course, it came with the whole cast, but I think, like you rightly pointed out, I have lived in Delhi all my life and I know there's that slight accent. So I think I was looking for, will I hear that? Will I hear that twang that happens, that the way we, pronounce certain words? And I think it made that accent visible also in the sea of characters, because we're hearing a lot of different ways of speaking Nagamese as well, depending on who's where, who's playing what role. So I think that was really something that...
But that's really boils down to Sudeep and Avinash's, I think sense of thoroughness.
Which showed also in the way each episode came with even the names, with the locations, and even probably even background.
Yes, everything. But that's the whole team.
Right.
It's not just the directors and the showrunners and the writers. It's everybody who worked on that set. They were just the best in the field. They love what they're doing. And it's most natural for you to feel so inspired that you want to give more than your best.
I'll move to the next one, which was Delhi Crime, because the first season, when it came out, it had already created a lot of conversations with the way, the sensitivity with which the case was handled, which everybody knew of, and yet people were watching it. And I think when the second season came, I remember I watched it, I finished it, and I used to live by myself back then. And at night, I was terrified. I'm like, oh my God, I need to double lock my house. But I think with again, I want to bring that up because that moment, I think when you're standing and you're visualizing that, your character is visualizing that salon she wants to have, and she's sort of, she's holding her hair in imagination. I think that's just, I don't know, it's so powerful, I remember, because it's a mix of her ambition, her ruthlessness, and how she was dismissed when she went to actually ask with so much of hope. I think those few moments when we get to know who this person is, because till then we are getting to see, of course, Shefali Shah's character who's trying to decode the police team, and then we see your version. And I think till that point, the ruthlessness as an audience member would be like villain, villain, villain. And then you get a sense of, you can't help yourself but understand where it came from, probably. So let's talk about that bit, because you're playing a very, very ruthless person in those scenes when we see the violence actually happening, and worse because probably because you're of a certain age, which hits you hard, even though you know some of it was fictionalized, some of it, of course, drawn from real instances. And yeah, that scene I think I would want to.
So Tanu Chopra, who's the director, showrunner, he and I did a bunch of short films when I was in New York. So he already knows. He already knows the way I work, and I know the way he works. And so in that scene, what was written was she comes in, she checks out the place, which is how the scene starts. She climbs up the stairs, she looks at it, she imagines what would happen. And then, because he didn't call cut, I went into another part of that room, and there was light from the window flickering on the wall. And I just started, like imagining, and I thought they're going to call cut because maybe this is because it's not there in the script,
Right.
But I could feel that David Bolin, our DOP, Tanuj, everybody was there with me, and they were there, and I gave a really good, good haircut, and I was so excited that, oh my God, they're letting me do this. So then when when you're allowed to play, and you have a team that trusts you and trusts your instinct and goes with it, even if it doesn't make it to the edit table, And of course, I'm delighted that, it made it to the edit table. But I think what was more important for me in sharing this with you is you plan things, and the more planned the shoot is, and your pre-production is key. The more everything is planned, the smoother the shoot will be. Because despite all the planning, there are things that can go wrong. But it was really nice to work with somebody who knows the shot actually ends here, but when they see the actor going towards something else, to give it a few moments at least, to see whether this works in the world of the story. And I was allowed to play. And because what was really important for me is not making violence cool. This whole thing of badass and somebody taking out a gun and shooting people. Or like how the Marlboro Man was so like this advertising genius, to make it somehow so cool. I didn't want to be an actor that is celebrating violence. And she does commit really heinous, violent acts, right? So it was very important for me that whoever watches this sees the human being inside, the human being behind these violent acts. That you may not be able to relate to the violence, but you must be able to relate to the humiliation, the number of times she has been snubbed, the number of times, she may have been marginalized, that fact that she was never asked if she wanted to have a child. That often for women in India, that's not even a choice that they make, So when Shefali Shah's character, when Vartika confronts Karishma in the last scene, that, when she's caught, she says, but like, you have a child.
Yeah.
And my character says, well, if you love it so much, you can,
Yeah.
And she tells it, but no one asked me if I wanted a child. I wanted to open a salon. But that was rubbished. And women are often forced to, vanish and erase out parts of themselves that society feels is not important. That our jobs are often related to raising a child, household chores, and anything beyond that, if you're allowed to do, then you're from a very progressive family, you know. I think equality is it should be a given. It's not it's not. I mean, imagine saying that I am so progressive because I allow my wife to work. You know, that's so bizarre. That's so bizarre. I didn't grow up like that. Like I didn't see my parents like that. So it was very important for me, and that is something that Tanuj and I discussed a lot. You know, we had wonderful discussions with a writer, and you know, she was so amazing. Like we had that space to say, you know, for me to share that in playing this character, for me that monologue at the end was very important. That she expresses that I did what I did. Yes, I did it. And as far as this whole maternal thing, which society glorifies, that if you're a woman, you must feel maternal. And you know, I don't. As a person, Tilotama, I don't. And so it was really nice for me to play a character like that, not the violent bits, you know, at all. I have lived in Delhi for 17 years. I understand the fear. I've lived with that fear. It's in my bones, you know. So when I moved to New York to study, if anyone came too close, I would think they're going to attack me. So this violence, this pervasive violence that is omnipresent in Delhi is something that has scarred all of us. It's a shared experience of many of us, right? So it's no, I don't want to like glorify this in any way at all, you know. And just because a woman is committing an act of violence doesn't make it any less, you know, violent. So that was very clear, that there is no condoning it. But no person having worked in you know, at Rikers Island, this prison in New York, where I did drama therapy work with both the male and the female inmates, working with them taught me that the line between being guilty and innocent is so thin and so circumstantial. It has so much to do with our privilege, so much to do with our safety nets. When I am on the edge of madness, like one more step, okay, when I'm on that edge, I have a whole circle of friends, enablers, who will pull me back, a family, a partner, my books, you know, my education. There is so much, my financial independence, that are able to moor and anchor that madness from tipping over. But when someone doesn't have those anchors, they are going to take that step because they are themselves a victim of such inequity, you know. And it became so clear that the line between someone being in and out of prison is really thin, and it's really a privilege to be on this side of things, you know. And I think my time at Rikers and my work as a, you know, a process worker, using drama for therapy, I think sensitized me in a way that no acting school did, you know. That you can't play a stereotype of a villain, because there are no two villains who are the same, because they haven't gone through the same things. You know, just like two heroes are not the same. So you can't just wash people with this, you know, paint, the general paint of villainy. Who is she? What does she want? What are her secret desires? What are her vulnerabilities? A villain has that, a hero has that. The peculiarities, the vulnerabilities, they're not just, you know, they're not just that, oh, only people from this side of the line can have it and people from this side of the line can't. Yes. So that was very important for me. Also, you know, having gone through, being with my family through a really difficult time when my mom was battling her cancer. A lot of the nonsense that I was holding on to in life just fell off because there was no time to hold on to those things. So when you are living with life with a certain intensity, because that's your circumstance, your day-to-day is quite life and death and it's intense. When you come out of something like that, I think one of the gifts, because you've gone through such a ringer, so one of the gifts I think for me was really like the heaviness of that difficulty, the time of great difficulty. A counterpoint to that and a gift to that was a sense of lightness, of just who I am, and not having to manufacture something that could be pleasing to others, and I think it was also just that growing up plus the experience at Rikers that made it very important for me, not just in Delhi crime, but it became, I think it was after my mom's illness, that all the women that I played and had the great privilege of playing, I think it became very important to me that I should be able to really show their humanity, whether they are positive, negative, heroes, villains, morally correct, wrong, but you're still human. And I think that became something that I was searching for in whatever I played because of what I had seen and gone through in those 3 years pre-pandemic and that time. And I think COVID and the immense amount of loss of life and suffering that one witnessed and daily heard about, I think it really exfoliated us in ways that, you felt raw. You felt, you felt like it was something, it was one couldn't help but being, it was really life transforming. And I hadn't seen that scale of human suffering and that this universal experience of panic and fear, and I think that also began to make me feel like, so if I have to leave my parents who are vulnerable and go to work, it must mean something. And since I'm an actor, not a director and a writer, I can't control the narrative. What I can do is, in the little bit that I'm given, I can at least make sure that it's a fully fleshed human being, and that her inner life is accessible, without laying it thick, But it was important. It was important that people can sense and get a sense of, and they have a glimmer of this woman's inner life,
I will now move on to a slightly fun role. I don't know how many people had watched it. I discovered it accidentally. This was a limited series, Tooth Pari.
Yes. Tooth Pari.
Tooth Pari. Sorry. Yes. It was a play on that fairy. Yes. And I think I'd gone to Kolkata, and somebody told me, I think it was around Salt Lake, somebody from there, and they were taking me around. And they said, do you remember that show? I said, yes. She's like, it was shot somewhere around here, some of the scenes. Okay. So, and then I went back and rewatched it. And I remember being this very fun, quirky vampire. Yeah. And what came to my mind is, because seeing in such very, very intense, serious role, it was so amazing to watch you do that fun and dressed in that whole finery and sitting.
I'm so thrilled. I'm so thrilled that Shruti Mahajan, the casting director, thought of me, and Pratim Das Gupta thought of me for this part. It's given that I've never done anything like this, I would not have expected them to trust that I can deliver it, but I'm so glad they did. But again, it goes to show Pratim and Shruti's, Yeah, they took a risk. Not everyone wants to. They would want to cast someone who's already done this or something like that. And I was so excited. I was like, yes, yes, yes. But I don't know. I'll have to learn Kathak. I've never, I was like, she's a dancer. I don't have one dancing bone in my body. And I was like, this is great. What else do you live for? To learn a new language, to, learn dance. At this amazing teacher who came home, this living room became my, and yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing to play something with a certain sense of levity and lightness and also, learn. But Pratim, I think really Tooth Pari is testament to Pratim's madness, and his sense of fun and the way he imagined this world. A bar which has different kinds of blood, the pods in which they sleep. It's really like, it was
Like, were there, like, when you read the script, were there also questions? Where did you also have thoughts like, okay, how is this going to play out finally on screen?
no, because Konkona was so clear.
Right.
And Konkona and Pooja Tolani, who wrote, when you read the script, you know exactly how it is going to flow and move.
Right.
There's a certain rhythm to it. And when we did the workshop, she was so particular. Coco was so particular about the way, even like when I'm on the staircase, for instance, when I'm on the call, she wanted my tone to be really high. I don't talk like that. I don't talk with that tone. I don't. She's like, no, but that's how I want it, because it's the beginning of this, and I wasn't so sure about the choice. But when I did it, I realized why. This makes sense. Or even in the fight, the confrontation, because she's performing the fight.
Yeah, of course.
Actually, they don't need to fight at all. But the husband is there.
Yeah.
In the presence of the man, these two women have to look like they need to fight. We need to perform a certain sense of, like, again, I said, when you reach your 40s, you don't have to do these performances to please others, But in this scene, yet another example of two women performing a fight so that the man feels they're not morally, dubious.
And I think that is also letting the women who are watching it just instant recognition of that moment ki हाँ ये उनके लिए है.
हाँ,
You have to
exactly.
massage that fragile
You have to
ego.
massage that fragile ego that I know, like, for you to imagine that I'm a voyeur and she's an exhibitionist is too much to handle.
Right.
Perhaps. But of course, in this case, that's also not true. We figure out later that the husband actually does understand and does accept her for who she
Which
is.
again, with her, because if it was a reversed situation, I think that's why it created that sense of unease. It was not even the desire, it's that idea that this, because I've realized over time that when we're using these terms as a voyeur, it sounds such a fancy quote unquote word that we associate it. There's a certain class, there's a certain section of people who will have this particular desire for some reason, as if it is, you named it later. The concept existed before you named it.
Yes. Yeah, it is that intersection of class and desire made the Mira really an uneasy cocktail, It was that mixture, I think. And each beat was decided. Because it was very, very, like, it's a short film. You don't have time to waste, Each moment that Pooja and Coco created on paper is what we saw, And then, of course, the workshops, even the sex scenes, everything was workshopped, And I think that was really because Konkona, as an actor, has gone through the discomfort of being on a set where you have to shoot a sex scene and people are not very sure, what to do.
Right.
And I think so all that was taken into consideration. But again, it was also about, there was I almost felt this, again, it was not just realism, there's a sense of hyper-realism in which the women were performing, even to each other. And of course, there are moments by the vegetable vendor towards the end where you see them most honest, you know. But before that, there's also a she knows. Does she know? Does she know I'm watching? Maybe she does, you know. And I think this sense of, um, you know, us watching, spectating, being an observer, uh, it brings the idea of, you know, the metaphor of the mirror. It becomes like a matrix, you know. She is watching herself watch someone.
Yeah.
Yes,
And then also as an audience, because you're
and
watching
then
into
the audience,
Yeah.
you know. So she's already judging herself for doing what she's doing. Forget society judging her. Forget the audience of the mirror judging, you know. And I think that's the confidence that Pooja and, you know, Coco had. I remember Coco once saying that what happens between these two women, like many people said, are they going to continue? You know, and that what happens between these two women is nobody's business. They're two consenting adults. And I think that was very important for Coco. And I remember when she shared that with me, it was such a sense of like, now that's a hurrah, you know. And for me, that was a triumph. For me, the internal thread that held it together for me is that, yes, these women may have stumbled into this situationship that they are in, but whether they choose to continue it or not, you know, is something that is no one's business. And they are a byproduct of this very society. So even before the neighborhood judges them, they have already judged themselves. And especially my character, Ishita's character, has already judged herself. The sense of, you know, vulnerability that is there in the character when she masturbates and starts crying, you know, it's not just pleasure. It's almost feeling a sense of filthiness, you know, that who am I? What am I? Like, I can't even. And when Seema Didi tells Ishita that you can't even like satisfy yourself, you need to watch me. You know, that's such an, and it hits because it's true. It's the loneliness of being alone in this city, not having someone, you know, that's her cross to bear. And Seema's cross to bear is the fact that she doesn't have space to express her desire. And now she's being made to feel like she's done something dirty just because she, you know, used the bed. But I don't have a problem when she makes the bed and she washes my underwear and she washes my clothes. And these are acts of great intimacy. You know, so all those things.
It's so many layers to watching it.
Yeah, it was just, it was so exciting to play these, you know, these like a script with so many, just so, it's so nuanced and like, it felt like, you know, you step into this and this will explode. You step into this and then this will explode, you know. Even the lizard, you know, you know, the idea of that lizard, I remember it was not just about a comic relief. I remember seeing that lizard and feeling like, oh my God, even this lizard knows what I'm doing. You know, that you know, being able to not just and yet, despite my sense of shame, despite being almost watched by this lizard, not sure if she knows that I'm watching. Despite that, she chooses to continue. That discomfort was, you know, was in the script, was felt by the actor in playing it. So I think when it's in the script and when the director is so knows exactly what they're shooting and why they're shooting that scene, how is it that an audience will be able to judge it? Because the characters have already judged themselves.
Now, the last role, which is, of course, I was saving sort of the best for the last, which is Kissa. The idea of the performativity of, you know, gender, the roles that we have, and especially with the role, of course, Ifansa plays, of that forcing, and it's not even that kind of physical violence that's going on. It's just a violence of this person whose identity has been erased completely. So I just wanted to know, like, was it in workshop? How did you do? Because you're playing such intense scenes, and it was not, like I said, about the violence of the speech, but the reality, this intense desire to have a son, and this child, this figure who's just not grown up knowing that there is something wrong. So how was it like for both of you two? Did you like have a conversation before you have a workshop? How
So
did you?
Anup Singh, the director of this film, is just such a wonderful man, wonderful human being, and one of the most expressive directors. He gave us so many tools. The workshops were marvelous, absolutely marvelous. I remember even the audition. I've never auditioned. I've never done an audition like that. You know what I had to do for my audition? He asked me to twist my body as much as I could, like, one hand here, and like, how much can I twist my body like a pretzel, like you just, and he said, once you can't contort yourself anymore, stay in that discomfort for as long as you can. And then when you can't bear it anymore and you have to distangle and release yourself, if you feel like, if not even like you have to, if you feel like, if it comes in that moment, could you just say the word Ma? Okay, I had read the script. I had no idea what has this exercise got to do with the script. But as I did it, and when that Ma came out as an exhale, and then later when I was on set and we were shooting, I realized that, my God, this child loves her father so much that was willing to tape her breasts, be in physical pain 24 hours a day, just so that he could love her, because she loves him so much. And then that exercise made sense for me, that this child has literally twisted and contorted her sense of self in order to fit in, and in order to gain her father's love. And I guess the question was, Ma, and there's a scene in Kissa where Kavar asks his mother, "Tu meri rakhi Bali wang kyun nahi kiti ma?" Like, why didn't you protect me like Bali, my other sister? And it made sense that that he would do that, and it's something that's really stuck. That it's such an unusual thing to do, to see how an actor can ball them up themselves, and get into, become a point, disappear, vanish, and then when that you can't box them in, and then when they burst, what that bursting looks like, so this sense of contraction, and then this sort of like explosion, he could see that with that exercise. So this is that kind of man, so even our workshops were just like, from studying Chinese paintings, and the dragon stroke of a Chinese painting is, the central master stroke. And every element in the Chinese painting is either in harmony with that dragon stroke or against it. So he would make me think that when you're in this scene, is the surrounding that you're in, are you in harmony with it, or are you at war with it? Something like in this scene, does Cover have a public face? How does Cover stand when he's in public? And how does Cover stand when he's alone? She's alone. What's your public face and your private face? That how you can just scan through your entire script and ask yourself, is this in this scene? It's not about whether she is in public or not in public. Will she show her private face here? Will she, which one? Like, there were so many, from Natya Shastra, the Tribhang. There was a scene where Cover is bathing and Neeli sees her, and in that scene, suddenly I'm half naked, and this woman is going to now see me. So I need to, hide myself. And so Anup had talked to me about the Tribhang, in which your body is basically in 3 axes. So like, this is one axis, this is one axis, and let's say my neck, so this axis, right? Now, again, like when you do this, when you twist your body like this, there's a torque that happens, right? Your body, there's a physical torque, and you can't. So you've moved in these 3 different axes. And now you can't hold it for too long. So when you release it, but you don't know how your body will come back. Each time will be different. And in that scene, when I tried the Tribhang, it's just the way my body fell, even I didn't know, So there are so many things like this that he taught me that have become like tools for me to approach every character that I have played after that. So Irfan and I had so many so many wonderful memories of, working with Anup. And the lifelong memories, has opened my imagination, my mind, my body in a way that, very few have, and I think it's his immense generosity. Like in the presence of sometimes amazing directors, you feel you're amazing. But when they leave, then you feel ordinary again. So you're like all these planetary bodies that, take the sun's light, but don't have light of their own. So when the sun sets, there's darkness, But with Anup, I really felt that he made us, of course, feel amazing when we were in his presence. But even when he left, it was like, he gave us a piece of that light, to carry forth. And because he was so generous with his sharing, he didn't keep it to himself. What are the various tools that one can use? And that's why the friendship has still remained. Because it went beyond the film. His concern for us, our well-being, was beyond the scope of just the film. And I think filmmaking is so difficult. It's such a battle that I think very few filmmakers, even though they're the nicest of people, have that luxury and have that, expansiveness. Because it's so stressful. So I kept thinking that, maybe Anup is so nice during the workshop, but I'm sure during the shoot he'll be horrible. Because, under that stress, the best of people crack. You'll see a sign. You'll see one day where they're, not nasty to you, but to somebody else. But with Anup, it just never happened. And now years have passed and I've still not seen that side. So, it's really something special.
I'm going to end on that note, but if you're somebody if you've skipped any of these performances that I've mentioned in the video, I think you're missing out on so much. And I've tried to choose carefully to sort of try and fail, probably miserably, to see the range of characters that you've played. And thank you so much for talking to me. And if you like this video, please watch other videos on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and also follow us on our social media platforms. This is Tina Das from Bombay. Thank you.